I think the Rams have done a fantastic job of staying healthy this year. That's one of the most underrated things about this team. And I don't think the Bucs have obviously done a great job of staying healthy. I mean, they've been hit hard by the injury bug this year, more than probably anybody in their division. I mean, the Falcons just lost their starting quarterback for the season. I don't know if anybody's been more injured offensively on the year and been able to do more with it. Now they are on the cusp of losing a couple in a row in 3 of 4. And this hiccup at this point in the year is not fatal for them. Even if they lose Sunday, they can round into form and make some noise. I think if these two teams are at full strength, it's a great game. But the reality is the Bucs are not at full strength, and I think this is a spot where the Rams, they're laying 6.5 at home. Like, it makes sense. It's a tough matchup for the Bucs, and I think for the Bucs to win this game, they're going to have to take chances. Last week, I talked about Todd Bowles his own 39-yard line, and he's kind of risk adverse, and he's a defensive head coach, so he thinks, hey, my guys can figure it out. But in a ball game where you're chasing points and you're down 5 points and it's 4th and 2, like late in the game, I think you go. And the next time they get the ball back, they're down 2 scores. Now I know Todd, that's not his thing, and in the past, to his credit, these games have been more physical and lower scoring, and he hasn't had to turn up the blitz style as much, and he hasn't been as aggressive, ironically, in these spots, and he has done a good job of getting pressure on Stafford and Goff over the years, right? But the problem is, in this game, like, I think the Rams might have one too many horses, especially if Jamel Dean's down. Like, McVay's never had 2 dudes like this, Puca, Nacua, and Davante Adams, especially when you get down the red zone. Like, that's trouble. And the Rams are going to go. The Rams are going to go on 4th down in spots. The Rams, you guys know this, they've got an egg-shaped kicker. They actually have 2 kickers on their roster. The Seattle game, it was kind of an anomaly that they win the game on special teams by, coughing, cornering that punt late. This is a game where I don't see McVay kicking a lot of field goals, and with good reason. I would, if I were the Rams, try to jump them in this game and know that, like, hey, listen, like, we're built to play with a lead. Tampa is going to sell out to stop the run at times, but we still think we can run the ball on these guys. The Rams at this point are the clear favorite in this game, but it's one of those things where the Bucs, dealing with everything they've been dealing with, sometimes when you go on the road in the NFL, like, together, and you take a long trip, it really forces people, especially when you're playing a good football team, to bring their best. And so I think Tampa's going to bring their best. But the game to me comes down to, like, possessions and Todd Bowles taking chances. And so I want to see them being more aggressive, calling their offense, knowing that they're going to have 4 downs in some spots. So that means 3rd and 6, maybe it is a trap, maybe it is a draw, maybe it is a perimeter screen. But unlike in past weeks, you're going on 4th. That's the way I would play this game. And if I'm the Bucs, I want to get on the perimeter. Like, you look back at that game last week, I felt like Seattle got the run game going when it was perimeter run. They did have trouble running the ball, out of their 12 personnel against Rams' lighter personnel. So I think a lot rides on Jamel Dean's health. We talked about that. But speaking of health, the Rams' health, they're down Higbee now. Okay, and I don't think that's a huge deal. No disrespect to him. They'll still get into 13 personnel. They're also down Havenstein. They IR'd him this week. He's the lone. Actually, it's funny. I look forward to seeing Rob because he's the last St. Louis Ram. I can't believe he's still there. Credit to Big Rob. But McClendon's been really good in his stead. So I don't think those are big deals, and the Bucs aren't a great rush team. They're going to have to manufacture some pressure at their own peril with Matt Stafford. I think the most important injury in this game, and we'll see how it shows up, is Quentin Lake. We've been talking about personnel matching this whole conversation. Greg Olsen brings it up, and all of a sudden you got people at the podium having an answer for it. Seattle struggled in 12 personnel last week. I think they were negative 1.5 EPA in 12 personnel. That's bad. That's way worse than their season average in that personnel, which is top 5 easily, right? They could not run the ball. They weren't productive. Well, there's one thing, and I know Quentin Lake got hurt in this game early, but as going forward for the Rams, he's their nickel. So I kind of wonder how they're going to play that. And one of the reasons he is their nickel is because he is pretty good in the run game. So are we going to see McCreary, who we haven't seen yet? Are they going to stick him in the slot? You know, the nice thing is they got Durant, who in the past has played star for them. You know, so maybe they have some formational flexibility when it comes to the personnel going down the line. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, can they stop the run the way they've been stopping the run? You know, it's a very unique thing when you play the Rams. I think they just prefer to play light, but they also have the luxury to because of their defensive line, how fucking dominant those guys are and how disruptive they are. So I think that's the interesting subplot when Tampa has the ball.
Tampa just has to win the division. If you have guys who are truly questionable, do you run them out there on Sunday night, or do you wait for an upcoming 3-game homestand followed by your final 3, 2 against Carolina, 1 against Miami?
I think it's a great point. Tampa, I believe, I know is going to be in the playoffs. I believe in this team. I believe that they're a, hey, catch us in January kind of team. Like, it's not who you play, it's when you play them, right? The Rams are hot right now. They're hot shit. Right, and the Bucs are flailing a little bit, and I think everybody knows the story with them. They've just been banged up, so I think it's a good point. If somebody's healthy, like if somebody feels good enough to play, you trot them out there, you play them. But to your point, like everything's still out in front of you, and now Atlanta is trotting out Kirk Cousins.
Right. The Rams, by the way, the owner of the Atlanta draft pick, which could become a top 5 pick.
That's a fucking wild deal, dude.
Crazy.
That's a wild deal. The Falcons also an owner of somebody from Sean McVay's tree that hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting little relationship between those two teams. But as for the discourse, this whole Greg Olsen pointing out the personnel matching thing, it's not a new thing, which I think is interesting. I think it's more of a trend. Like, hey, it's the flavor of the month or whatever it is. But like in NFL buildings for the longest time, teams have talked about how to match personnels, and what to do in certain situations. Do you let teams, kind of coax you into playing lighter against lighter personnel? And then teams can run out of light personnel, or vice versa. In this situation for Seattle, they like to get heavy and throw the ball. And Greg Olsen keeps pointing it out, which I actually think is an interesting thing, guys. Like back in the day, you remember when we were growing up what football discourse was like on TV? It was like boom, and nothing against John Madden. I love John Madden, but there weren't like the depth of analysis that's readily available to everybody. Not only because of the internet, but also because like we know more than ever. Yeah. And you've got, probably one of the best color guys in the country, and Greg Olsen bringing up a very interesting point. And it shows the power that the media wields, because it almost felt like over the last couple of weeks, head coaches are having to answer for his conjecture. And, they're up at the podium answering questions about it. And he's got good points. But I think what you came out of this game thinking is like, the fucking Seahawks are fucked because people are on to them now. Look at the Rams. They played them light. I don't think it's that at all. I think if the Seahawks are fucked, it's because of their interior offensive line personnel. We'll get to that in a little bit. I think the Rams just prefer to play light for the reasons that I brought up. And I think the Quentin Lake thing is going to render that a little bit of a conversation for them going, the next month and beyond. Like if he doesn't rehab well, or he's such an important player for them in the run of the pass. So I think this is a very interesting football game. It's one the Rams probably expect to win, but look for Todd Bowles to have something up his sleeve, man. He's played this group tough. He's played McVay's offense tough. And I think if I had to guess, they might let them bleed some yardage on the ground.
Best plan of attack for Tampa Bay if they wanted to steal this game?
They need perimeter run game. They need to limit possessions for the Rams, and they need to go for it on fourth down. They need to, if they get 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 45-yard line, 50-yard line, they need to.
So low scoring game?
No, I don't know about low scoring. It's one of those, this is a box of chocolates game. I really have no idea the pace that's going to be preferred in this game.
Word.
And Bucky Irving might not play this week. Chris Godwin might be up, so all this stuff's important. I think even if Chris Godwin's not getting the ball, it's just when Ibuka's out there, and I like the young guys, they just key on him. They're going to bracket him. They're going to have extra help, and he's a good player, man. He's already a really good player. But it's hard, and having Godwin out there would help a lot. So, and to Nolan's point, like teams salivate when they play the Bucs. Even if they get healthy, that's the one thing that the Bucs defensively, I look at them, and even more important than the lack of pass rush, because you can generate pass rush, as I've said before. If your backers don't have a great feel, or they're not great in coverage in today's NFL, that's a tough deal, because in today's NFL, you've got offensive coordinators who make that thing look like 95 South out there in the middle of the field, and Stafford is not afraid to work the middle of the field like most great quarterbacks. So that will be a game within the game.